Passing down the family farm, Trump takes notice of ag labor, and are the Russians stealing your face? The Democrats seem to think so. Welcome to another episode of Friday on the Fly. We are happy that you have joined us, whatever time it is, wherever you're at, all that good stuff. We are thankful that you are here. So anyway, I've got the one and only known as Tomas. He's tried to shake that.
Tyler Wilson, for those of you who aren't familiar
know
with the
him
Tomas.
on a professional basis, or actually an unprofessional basis. They know him
unless you went to high school with us and were in Spanish class, you don't know me as Tomas.
That's his alias is Tyler Wilson. He's kind of like Jason Bourne, his real name.
Well, I do jump out of a lot of buildings, at least once.
Right. Getting chased by bad guys or chasing bad guys. Certainly.
Oh, shoot.
Well, that's an intro for you.
Yeah. We've got some cool stuff for
we
everybody
do.
this morning.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I'm distracted, everybody listening, because I'm using a different interface, which is our system, to be able to record. And anyway, there were some things I had to switch back and forth, so I wasn't really thinking as much about what I was saying as much as I was thinking about having to switch things back and forth. So if it sounds weird.
It's new and fancy, but sometimes new and fancy is just unfamiliar, and we've got to get used to it.
So anyway, if that intro sounded odd, it's because of that. Moving on, passing down the family farm, Tomas. So let me start, and then I'm going to have you jump into it more so. I had just seen this article yesterday, and it is from the agriculture.com folks, Successful Farming, written by Jolene Brown, titled When the Senior Generation Withholds Important Transition Information. And I just thought this would be interesting because my background is that even though my family would talk behind closed doors, we don't just talk to any old, person about our plans or whatever. We still talk to one another. And I'm not involved in all those conversations, but I do know that there is conversation. So it was odd to me from my personal experience to hear that there are actually families out there who the elder generation actually withholds the plans for when they do die and the farm is left. They actually withhold the plans as to what's going to happen with that farm, and it becomes the duty of the lawyer to actually convey that information postmortem, yeah. Postmortem. I can't speak. To convey that information to the next generation that will be taking that, and that can cause a lot of stress, I would imagine, because you're unsure of things. So anyway, I want to give Tomas here the floor on that to dive in on some of his thoughts on that. We just thought it'd be interesting kind of as a springboard. We're not necessarily going to talk about what's in this article, just the general topic of it. So go for it, Tomas.
Right. And there's, withholding information, it doesn't just have to be not saying anything. It could be not being clear. It could be trying to do things outside of your capabilities anymore, and continuing to try to not set the next generation up for success. Even if you're not conveying your thoughts, as the generation moves through and gets closer to retirement. The problem is people who are in their 70s and 80s right now, they've never thought of retiring. Like retirement wasn't even in their brain. Farmer specifically.
I like that.
They
workers.
They just never have thought that they're going to be done. There is no light at the end of the tunnel. And I think, and we've seen it in our little community, when somebody does finally, because of health issues or whatever it is, when they have to pass that torch because they're forced to, not because they want to, they're forced to. Yeah. They don't last long.
Yeah,
that is what they live for. For that farm.
Yeah, how many times do you hear about the older guy who unfortunately has family members who, in my opinion, don't really care as much for him and tell him he's done with the farm, or whatever. Somehow they get control, they get power, they take the farm from him, and then he's left to quote unquote retire. Within a year, he's dead because his life doesn't matter anymore. His whole he's been getting up at 5 in the morning for the last 60 years. And all of a sudden he's told he's just going to sit inside, or he can trim the bushes around the house, and that's about
Right.
it. And so it's understandable why there would be a clinging to that power, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I hate using that word given the insanity of the political climate with that word, but
You can
anyway,
only sit
yeah.
inside and watch Andy Griffith reruns so many times
Well, I mean,
before
that's to be
your
argued
purpose
out, I think.
is
I could
is
anyway.
is diminished at that point, and it's a sad place to be, especially. Okay, so let's take, not only is that transition hard for our generation to be our grandparents,
Mm-hmm.
but then our parents are trying to clean up, where that's at.
Yeah.
And if they don't convey any information, which is, excuse me, what this article is talking about, if they have no idea what the plan was, and now they're forced to enact that plan,
Right.
how is that situation going to be good for anybody, especially if there's multiple siblings involved?
Yeah.
You talk about 10 grandkids involved.
Yeah.
It could get
all the
to be
greed that can go with it too, potentially.
Yeah, the turmoil there inside the family could be could be tremendous. So I guess I would just encourage everybody, we're family. Let's be transparent. Let's get on the same page and make this transition good, for everybody.
Yeah.
And even if our grandparents or our parents aren't thinking that retirement word, how can they still have an impact without, if they can't
Right.
have it physically?
And that's actually how ancient kings used to pass on power in that way. Their son would start to take over power, and they would actually sit in the seat of king at one point while the king was still alive, the first king. And so just an example there, there's tutelage, there's mentorship that happens, and that's just as much, on the side of labor. You don't have to retire.
Mm-hmm.
You can still be absolutely have a prominent role in the farm by teaching and by discussing and communicating and by conveying what you've learned throughout the years on a day-to-day basis or on a seasonal basis or whatever. It doesn't mean you have to go, like we talked about earlier, or like you said, sit in and watch Andy Griffith. Although I think that's a pretty good,
That's not bad.
good.
It's a unique situation where family businesses can be, because a family business, the parent will train that next generation to take it over, and it should be the same way in family farms, or if your family owns a restaurant or
It's
whatever
the idea
it is.
of apprenticeship.
You have a vision for your child to assume that role for you someday. Well, in business, in bigger business, I guess I'm just thinking of my role here. We don't get the luxury most of the time to have somebody sit in a role with the current person who's doing that role
Mm-hmm.
to transition,
Right.
assuming it. Most of the time we're backfilling a position somebody's already left, or somebody gets promoted and they need to fill that role and still try to maintain the person who comes in for them. So it's not that clear distinction where the family business has that opportunity if they choose to see it as an opportunity.
Yeah, and we can convey it in black and white terms here, and I think that's actually helpful because you can't address every single individual subjective or relative situation. There are some very basic principles that, if followed, regardless of your situation, could really help if you're willing to do that. And it's on both sides, right? So I can see how there may be the power hungry or money hungry or whatever it may be son who the older generation is like, he needs to mature more before I even, I've got to be careful of what I tell him. I know there's situations like that out there,
Sure.
but I think we're more so talking about just kind of your general, of the old cloth, the old guard, who, like you said, wants to work all their lives, which is, that's what I want to do. I totally appreciate that. But like you've been conveying, man, there needs to be transfer of information,
Right.
so that the younger generation can. It really exposes what's your true passion, or what's your actual goal in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Is it to be in control all the time, or is it to see the farm succeed? Sometimes those things are synonymous, and but other times, like what we're talking about, it's not. So if you're going to be in control of all the information, at least convey that information if you truly want the farm to succeed.
Correct.
So anyway, any last words on that, Tomas?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We're going
All
to
right.
wrap it up.
Oh, okay. All right. So
I'm trying to keep us on schedule here.
Yeah. I could talk all day. Everybody probably knows that from listening to this. So Trump takes notice of ag labor, Tomas. He's aware of agriculture and the labor there within. Tell me about
That's
it.
a good thing. Yeah, we found an article on AgWeb that was published on the 17th by Rhonda Brooks. It's titled "Farm Labor Crisis Gets President Trump's Attention." And again, Matthew and I do not claim to be experts on really most of anything we talk about.
No, not even close.
But this article, you can read it. It's a decent article. It summarizes, but there are 900,000 full-time jobs available in U.S. agriculture.
On average, yeah.
On average, 300,000 of those last year were filled with these H-2A workers, which are temporary workers that are from outside of the U.S. And the basic premise of President Trump here,
242,000, by the way, just to correct
from
that
last year, it's projected to be at 300,000 this next year. So the USDA Secretary Sonny Perdue had a statement that says President Trump once again shows his commitment to helping American farmers, ranchers, and producers continue to be the most productive in the world by increasing their access to a stable legal workforce. The H-2A law or process is being revised. There's a 489 page document that's going to...
We read through the whole thing.
Yes, we did. Absolutely.
Not even
got
close.
the highlighters
Not even
out.
a little bit.
Takes me back to grad school. No, that'd be terrible.
Man.
We did not read that document. It hasn't been published yet. I think it's coming out. It might be maybe today.
It was out yesterday, right? Yeah.
Yesterday.
It was out yesterday. It said Wednesday. Yep. It came out yesterday.
The H-2A law is getting reformed to make the process easier to access outside labor. One key thing to note from this article, and again, we're not experts, but there's a set wage rate with this this rule for these workers that come in, and President Trump, the Department of Labor, they're looking to make sure that wage does not
compete,
bring disparity between the U.S. citizens accessing those jobs as well. So
compete with high level on farm wage rates. So
right,
instead of either picking the fruit of a tree or whatever else, or detasseling, or something like that, somebody who's operating heavy machinery consistently for the farm, they're seeking to not have competition between those kinds of jobs.
The article uses the example of a precision ag technician. So if you are have a specialized skill like precision agriculture, your wage is going to be higher than those people who are the day laborers who are picking watermelons or whatever it may be in that
non-specialized labor, basically.
Correct. And they are looking at reforming what they define agriculture as well. Traditionally, it said in this article, it's your fruit, your vegetable industries, your dairy industries. That's heavily what uses these types of labor workforce, but they're looking into reforestation and some other things that aren't, the traditional row crop agriculture we think of here in the Midwest.
And I think there's another side to it too. It doesn't necessarily say it in the article, I don't think, or at least I haven't seen it if it does, but there are plenty of documented cases in which foreign labor has been abused. So the folks who either come here illegally, manage to get a job. I mean, I think of one story of a tomato farmer who was just cruel to these workers who were trying to be in the U.S. illegally and needed to have food and money, and he just treated them horribly and barely paid them. It was kind of like was it sharecroppers, or basically where you just make enough to survive and you're stuck in that system. So I think there's also a side here where this protects those who come in, especially because they need to be legal, right, for this. So
this is a legal process to get you into work.
So you're put through a process to where you're protected as well as the laborer, and all that. So I think that's an aspect. But
mutually beneficial for everybody, and our president's taking attention to that. So it's a good thing that agriculture's still on the forefront.
Yes, if anything else. So all right, whiplash. What do we have going here? We've got Russians. This could get heated. We have Democrats.
Yeah,
So
we told ourselves
it
we
is
wouldn't talk
heated,
about
though.
this for 40 minutes, but who knows where it may go. Everybody has
Yeah.
seen, if you haven't seen, you're living under a rock on social media, this Face app that you can download, and I have not downloaded it, and not because of this article, but you download it and it transforms your face to show you what you're going to look like when you're older. And I think, well, 30 years I'll look in a mirror and we'll see the same
I'll
thing.
see it. Yeah.
But
Yeah. I'll see
there's
the accurate
there's
version.
an article on NPR.org. It says Democrats issue warnings against viral Russian-based face morphing app.
There's just so much loaded into that title. I love it. That's great.
It's a clickbait article, and by golly, we
By
clicked
golly,
on
we
it.
clicked and clicked again. So yeah, the Face app, Democrat Chuck Schumer, he tweeted, I think it was, and let me find the exact quote here. I'm just scrolling all about here on the old computer. Tomas, I can't find it.
It
Can
would
you
be
find it?
deeply troubling.
There
This
you
is
go. Thank you.
Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer. It would be
Chuck Schumer.
deeply troubling if the sensitive personal information of U.S. citizens was provided to a hostile foreign power actively engaged in cyber hostilities against the United States.
I love it. So this obviously has so much loaded into it. Again, if you've been under a rock, then welcome out here to the current political climate. We recently had, of course, the Mueller report, which had to do with especially the Democrats wanting to have an ability to impeach our current president based on collusion with Russia in his winning of the 2016 election. So this is why it's so interesting, of course, that it's a Russian-based deal and that it's Democrats bringing it up. I'm not going to read the mind or heart of Chuck Schumer on why he's bringing it up on that side of things, but it's just funny to me that it's brought up, and that it's made newsworthy.
There are some correlations you can make if you wanted to go down that
Right.
rabbit hole.
Yeah.
The article does have some good information. If a military person downloads this app, and let's say our foreign frenemies, Russia, gets a hold of that face image, can they manipulate
Right.
that and get into secure? I mean, it's
Actually
very,
a good point on the surface.
Sure.
I think, right? Like it is a good point of identity theft is so rampant, or at least the the security companies tell us that, right?
Sure.
And so anyway, your identity can be stolen, or your accounts or whatever. And I think there is an aspect of, you even think of iPhones have the capability to unlock themselves based on your face recognition, right? So what's the potential there? On the inner workings of the software, can Russia, could a Russian hacker or somebody get into accounts via your facial recognition if you're submitting your face to this app? So there's surface things that are there potential ways in which you could be taken advantage of? Sure, but I mean that's with most things technology
There
nowadays.
Pretty well is with everything. I mean,
Right.
4 or 5 years. It's probably been longer than that. But Target had a data breach, and
Right.
my wife likes Target, so we were a part of that. But I mean,
Yeah.
if that happens,
here to
you
talk
have to go
about it.
through. Yeah, I mean, there's a million different things that could go every day.
Right.
You log into Facebook on your phone. Last year, 87 million Facebook users had their personal data compromised.
Yeah.
Right, by a
Yep.
third-party analytics firm. So, they're again, use the app, don't use the app. Just be aware that anything you do, anything you put out there, it kind of goes back. We talked about it earlier on an earlier podcast. Putting things on social media, doing anything with these phones that we think are conveniences that are the worst invention that ever happened in the world. You have to be mindful of what you're putting out there and how available you're making yourself, how accessible, and not
How
just from a
vulnerable.
risk standpoint, but from your family standpoint. What attention are you giving your children?
Just being an adult, which I mean nowadays we don't really understand what that is, but yeah, just being mature in what you put on social media, for instance. But I do want to read what So FaceApp, in this article, it says FaceApp told TechCrunch, and I missed where TechCrunch came into this because I scrolled down too far, that it only processes photos selected by the user. So I'm guessing that they're getting at that this app does not have selective ability to breach your entire photo library and pick and choose what it wants to have access to. You have to actually give access to this, which is what wow, I can't believe I called you Tyler, Tomas. Blasphemy. Which is what Tomas just brought up, is that it's up to you, it looks like. So they say they process photos selected by the user, slurped. That's the verb they're using here? Slurped?
They'd used all the other ones. They had to find.
How long is this article that you come to the point where you have to use the verb slurped to define how...
They stick the straw into the phone and
they slurped out their photo library. Oh, wow. Slurped from their photo library or those captured within the app. Security researchers have done their own work to back that claim. Will Straffic... definitely saying that wrong, a security researcher said he couldn't find evidence that the app uploads the camera roll to remote servers. So that's the worry. And again, I honestly think, I can't read Chuck Schumer's mind or heart, so I'm not going to claim to do that, but it is odd to me that it would become newsworthy and noteworthy when you have a 2020 election coming up. You have the still beating the dead horse of Trump won only because of Russia in 2016. Here's the opportunity for Russia to get a hold of faces and somehow use those. I think that it's a worry for 2020, personally. Whether I have any grounds for that is to be determined. But it's an interesting little article.
But as we lead up to that 2020 election, I think we're all going to inherently think that everything is biased.
Oh, yeah. Well,
leading up to that, right?
I think that we have good reason to think that, though, as well.
We're starting that in July of 2019.
They've succeeded. They've gotten into my mind.
We're 16 months away from an election,
right.
But
yep.
It's already starting to become on the forefront.
Yep. So any last notes on this one, Tomas?
No. Use the app. Don't use the app. I will not be using the app, and it's not because I think Russia's going to love my pretty face.
I won't be using it for both reasons, because... A, what if he's actually correct on the surface? Yeah, I don't want my face over there. But also, they could get it anywhere else. I mean, my face is out there enough for Facebook or whatever.
Nobody
else.
wants
Even
to
just
do
with
it,
one picture.
Google Tyler Wilson. There's plenty of pictures out there.
I'm gonna do it.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, look up his alias, Tomas.
I was a quarterback for the Oakland Raiders. And there's all kinds of cool Tyler Wilsons out there.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, anything, I guess this week, we really dropped the ball last week because 4-H fair for Montgomery County was coming up, and we didn't mention that.
Yeah. Today's the livestock auction.
Yeah.
Yeah, yesterday. This week.
This week is a livestock auction.
It's been a fair.
It's the end of the fair this week, so.
Yep. Lots of other county fairs starting all over, or happening right
State
now.
Fair
I know
will be in August, first week, second week.
Yep. State Fair starts here pretty soon. Our interns are getting ready to wrap up. They've only got a couple weeks left, so
that's gone by fast. We'll have to have them on the regular.
It's flying by
here soon.
Yeah, let's get them on here in the next couple of weeks. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I can't tell you guys the preview for next week's because I haven't even recorded it yet. So let that be a cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
What that episode's
It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be fantastic. You guys will love it. Yeah. So anyway, nothing going on this weekend, I don't think, other than heat. Humidity.
Lots of heat. Yeah, we have that tropical humidity that we're going to be dealing with here in the Midwest that we're not quite used to, which is perfect for county fair time. I think I'm glad I'm not fair board president this year.
Which is the appropriate way to be at State Fair.
So
anyway.
Drink water. Stay safe out there.
Stay safe out there. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. If you did, do give us a little like on Facebook if you would. Subscribe on your favorite listening platform. That lets us know that people are still interested in listening, at least to us fuddy-duddies on Fridays.
And if you see a good article, send it to us. Send it to us.
We say that every time.
We find stuff. But
there was one, by the way, we're going to have to mention maybe next week, and maybe this could be a lead-in to that. I had seen an article where they're talking about plant or farming taking radical changes in the future to be using like 95% less water and such, and they had a picture of a factory, basically a big warehouse with all these plants stacked up in their own little racks. So maybe that's something we could hit on next week, just to give you guys a little preview. I don't know, but I thought that was interesting. So look that up. Even let us know if you'd like to hear about that. Otherwise, have yourself a good weekend. We keep dragging this thing out. We're at 25 minutes now. I hope all of you all out there have a great weekend. Enjoy your family. Enjoy your friends.
Talk to you next week.
Tomas, thanks. See ya.